When I was a kid, the only live action Nickelodeon shows that I watched were Drake and Josh, iCarly, and Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, and that's basically it. And I am most likely going to keep it that way because, in addition to a vast majority of live action Nickelodeon shows being from Dan Schneider and well, I mean, if you know, you know. But in general, stuff like, Zoe 101 and Victorious just don't interest me at all. They didn't interest me when I was a kid, so I don't see why they would interest me now. I just don't see any reason for me to watch them at all. Basically, aside from these three shows, there were no other live action Nickelodeon shows that I cared about at all. However, in early 2019, I'm actually a bit embarrassed to admit this, but I had a very short-lived Henry Danger guilty pleasure phase. I don't know what it was, okay? In early 2019, I would watch Henry Danger as a guilty pleasure and I wouldn't hate it somehow. I acknowledge that it was junk television, but I still somehow managed to find enjoyment in it despite that, or maybe because of that. I have no idea. This was all the way back in 2019, so chances are if I sit down and I watch Henry Danger now, it's gonna be the worst thing I've ever seen, but I don't know. Henry Danger truly is one of the TV shows ever made. Okay, we can say that. That's the most I can say about it. But I'm not here to talk about Henry Danger. I'm here to talk about the short-lived cartoon spin-off of Henry Danger, The Adventures of Kid Danger from 2018. This was notably the final Nickelodeon show to be made by Dan Schneider, as he was fired from Nickelodeon earlier in 2018, and this would also end up being his only cartoon made for Nickelodeon. So how does The Adventures of Kid Danger stand when compared to the other cartoons that I've looked at in this series, especially since the previous cartoon I've looked at is the worst cartoon I've ever seen, and possibly the worst cartoon ever made? Well, allow me to explain. I naturally went into this with very low expectations. I thought that this was going to be another nothing burger cartoon, something that was obviously not good, but there was literally nothing for me to say about it at all. It would be near damn impossible for me to talk about this show and why it's bad, because there is nothing noteworthy about it. I expected something akin to Slippin' Jimmy or that JoJo Siwa cartoon. Stuff that's just, they're not good at all, but there is literally nothing for me to say about them regarding why they're bad. As it turns out though, I was only half right. For the most part, this show was just really average. For bad cartoon standards, it's not good, but I wouldn't really call it worst cartoon ever made levels of bad. It doesn't even deserve to be considered on that level. For the most part, it's just really average and there's just nothing to say about it. However, what makes this different from Slippin' Jimmy or that JoJo Siwa cartoon is that there are occasions, there are episodes where this thing is just completely f***ing unhinged. I went into this expecting a generic superhero cartoon, and although that is kind of what this show is, it's also really f***ing insane. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of love this show. It's kind of a masterpiece. This show can be really f***ing stupid at times, but weirdly enough, it's kind of entertaining in how stupid it is. This show is so unfunny that it turns around and becomes funny again, but not in the intended way. A phenomenon that I refer to as the damn Daniel effect. When something is so unfunny, so devoid of humor, that it somehow creates humor. It becomes funny, but not in the intended way. Other examples of the damn Daniel effect include Ugandan Knuckles, Big Chungus, Mr. Incredible becomes uncanny, Eddie Murphy's 2007 masterpiece Norbit, Thor Love and Thunder, Skibbity Toilet, which... Actually, no, never mind. I'm not really Skibbity Toilet. If it weren't for the Elsa gatification of Skibbity Toilet, I would probably put this in as being so unfunny it's funny, but the Elsa Gate crap, the nursery rhymes and whatever, the Skibbity Toilet sucks. How the f*** did we allow this to get popular? Seriously. There are 3 particular episodes that I want to talk about, and I think these 3 episodes perfectly exemplify just how unhinged this show is, and why I believe that it's kind of a masterpiece actually. So yeah, let's dive into that. If you enjoy this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. With that said, let us dive in. The Adventures of Kid Danger follows the titular Kid Danger and Captain Man, otherwise known as Henry and Ray, respectively, alongside Schwoz, an inventor that works for them, and Charlotte, Henry's best friend. The first of the 3 episodes that I wish to talk about, as well as the first episode of the series as a whole, begins with Ray analyzing various pieces of popcorn in order to find 2 pieces that are exactly the same. After being unable to find any exact matches, he and Henry head over to a movie theater, all while completely ignoring a school bus that has been hijacked. Now, if I was literally any other cartoon YouTuber, I would criticize the fact that they would focus on something stupid like the popcorn instead of something serious like the school bus. However, I have this little thing called dignity, and I know better than to take a cartoon based on Henry Danger of all things seriously. Listen, animation deserves to be taken seriously. There are animated movies and cartoons and whatnot that should be taken seriously. The Adventures of Kid Danger is not one of those cartoons. I'm sorry. And again, this show is so unhinged, it's so absurd that it is nearly impossible for me to be angry at it, much less take it seriously. Anyways, Henry and Ray head to the movies and go through different buckets of popcorn in order to find 2 pieces that are exactly the same. While doing this, Charlotte successfully saves the school bus. After having no success in finding the popcorn, Ray pulls out a duplication gun that can create 2 exact pieces of popcorn. They duplicate a piece of popcorn, the duplicated piece becomes sentient, runs off into a tub of butter, explodes into various pieces of popcorn, which all morph together into a giant popcorn creature. The creature goes outside and starts destroying cars. There's a Back to the Future reference for literally no reason. It has no effect on the plot, and it isn't done in a clever way. It's just, oh, here's a reference to a famous movie pointlessly shoehorned in for no reason. I think this random Back to the Future reference perfectly exemplifies what I meant earlier when I said that this show is so unfunny that it's funny. This reference serves no purpose, and it isn't even done in a funny or clever way, yet for some reason it becomes funny because of how unfunny it is. It's so pointless and so unfunny, it becomes funny because of how pointless and unfunny it is. Anyways, as Kid Danger and Captain Man try to stop the popcorn monster, Charlotte drives the bus into the popcorn monster and defeats it. As the kids from the bus eat the popcorn, the duplicate piece jumps onto a bird and flies away, claiming that he'll be back on Christmas Day. No, I don't get the joke, nor do I know what it's referencing. Don't worry, you're not alone. The episode then ends. This was the first episode of the series, and I've gotta say, it is definitely one of the pilot episodes of all time. It is extremely stupid, but also weirdly entertaining because of its stupidity. I think that I was so badly scarred by the Red Ape family that at this point, I'd take literally anything else. If I never watched the Red Ape family, I'd probably be like, oh man, this is the worst thing ever, I hate it, or something like that, I don't know. But now I'm just like, sure, I'll allow it, I'll take it, I don't f***ing care anymore. With that said, the next 2 episodes, I believe, further exemplify just how unhinged yet strangely entertaining this show can really be. The next episode we are going to look at starts off with Captain Man and Kid Danger as entertainers at a kid's birthday party, and it turns out that the kid's father is the richest man in town. Big Dingus, yes, that is his real name, who is probably my favorite character in all of media, even if he's essentially Dollar Store Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. Yo, on a side note, I'm sorry, I gotta vent out a bit. How come nobody has ever, like, considered the idea of Doug Dimmadome in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2? Like, seriously, how is he not one of the most requested characters for the game? It doesn't make any sense at all. You know, people are asking, you know, like, where's Timmy Turner? Why is there no Fairly Odd Parents representation in these games? Bro, Doug Dimmadome would be perfect. I need him. I unironically want him. Alright? If we could get Hugh Neutron into the first game, we can get Doug Dimmadome, okay? I don't care. Nothing is impossible. Nelvana can off. I want Doug Dimmadome in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. Anyways, the boy and Big Dingus tell Captain Man and Kid Danger that if they go and pick up 1,000 wieners from Texas Wieners, they'll get paid even more money. The two then embark on the 45-minute drive before eventually arriving at Texas Wieners and ordering the wieners. Just then, a sheriff arrives and finds out that there are no more wieners left. A chase sequence between Captain Man and Kid Danger and the sheriff then follows. There's like this joke country song playing in the background that's describing what's happening. I can't play it for obvious reasons. And then Kid Danger starts trying to blast away the sheriff's tires and accidentally blasts away the top of the car instead. And I think this was the exact moment that I realized I am unable to truly hate this show. It's such a stupid cartoon, but it's so stupid and so absurd, and it's obviously not something that's supposed to be taken seriously, that it would honestly be redundant to like hate on it. I don't even think the original Henry Danger, from what little I remember about it, was as unhinged or absurd as this. Say whatever you want to say about the adventures of Kid Danger, but for better or worse, there has never been another Nickelodeon show like it, and there will most likely never be another Nickelodeon show like it. And it just keeps getting better. Just you wait. In the same way the previous episode had that pointless and forced Back to the Future reference, this episode has a pointless and forced Van Halen reference. The two stop at the quote-unquote David Lee Roth Bridge, which is out of order, and there's a reference to the Van Halen song Jump, in which a cartoon version of David briefly appears. I guess it just reinforced that, yeah, this is a Van Halen reference, in case you somehow didn't know that already. I mean, I want to imagine the target audience for this thing won't know Van Halen at all, but like still, this is just, it's stupid, man. It really is. It is once again such an unfunny and poorly executed reference that it ends up becoming funny because of how unfunny it is. This would have actually been a pretty decent, cute little reference if it was just the signs and nothing else. But the pointless David Lee Roth cameo turns it around into being so unfunny that it's funny. The two drive off the bridge during the predictable slow motion scene when they're in the air, and it's like, oh, are they gonna make it or are they not gonna make it? And while this is going on, there's some kind of love ballad that plays for a few seconds for some reason. I don't know, okay? And then they crash into the party with the wieners, and everyone lives happy ever after, I guess. The end. This episode definitely shows off more of the unexpectedly surreal tone that this show occasionally has. And even though I've said it a million times already, I still can't help but weirdly love it. You know, it's crazy to think that I went into this expecting a generic superhero cartoon, and what I get instead is, it's definitely something, alright. That's for sure. Upon rewatching the third episode, I didn't find it to be as funny as I did the first time around, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to cut it out and just cut straight to my final thoughts on the show. Sorry about that. The Adventures of Kid Danger is easily the weirdest cartoon I have looked at in this series thus far. I know I previously said Control-Alt-Delete was the weirdest cartoon I've looked at, but there's a big difference between this and Control-Alt-Delete. Control-Alt-Delete was just some really low-budget, obscure web cartoon made in the mid to late 2000s. This is from the late 2010s. It's from a professional animation studio, and it's just, to have it be the quality that it is, it's insane to me. Amongst the very surreal, absurd sense of humor that this show has, there's also unfortunate reminders of who made this show scattered throughout, which does hinder the ironic enjoyment that I get out of this show. But for the most part, the absurdity of the humor can really get to me. It's worth noting as well that in addition to the pointless pop culture references like Back to the Future, Star Wars, Van Halen, whatever, there's also tons and tons of references to other Dan Schneider shows, and even characters from these other shows appear briefly in episodes. One episode it features a villain who dresses up as Gibby from iCarly, one episode briefly features Drake and Josh, and one episode features Goomer, yes, that is his real name, from Sam and Cat. I regret to inform you all that Lil Sam and Lil Cat never once appear on this show, which is a shame because this could have been the greatest crossover ever if that ever happened. My favorite thing about this is that if you've never seen these other shows, you would have no idea who these characters are or why they're in this at all. So like there's an episode that features like a girl from Game Shakers. And it's like, if you've never seen Game Shakers before, you would have no idea who this character is or why they're evil. I've never even seen Game Shakers myself. I know next to nothing about it. The most that I know is that it's basically iCarly if it was bad. And that's about it. That's literally all I know about it. You gotta be real deep into the Schneiderverse in order to understand these characters and where they're from. After closely examining this show, I'm not sure what it's trying to be. There's a part of me that thinks this is trying to be like a satire of like superhero movies. Like it's trying to be a parody satire of the MCU or the DCEU or something. But I'm not even sure if that's what it's even trying to be. There's an episode where they try and fight off a monster, and like the episode just ends with them not like chasing the monster, stating that like it would be better if it had like an abrupt, underwhelming ending or something along those lines. And it actually ends just like that. And it's I don't know why it does that, but it's weirdly funny despite being lazy. I'm genuinely really confused as to what to say about this thing. It's kind of like, it's like a masterpiece of bad animation. After looking through 8 cartoons, we finally have something that's funny bad, instead of just being either boring or like not awful but not good, just inoffensive, or just straight up offensively bad. It's like finally we have something that, even though sometimes it could be just really average, other times it can be absolutely unhinged with like how bad it is. It's like funny bad. And after having to sit through the Red Ape Family, this was a much needed thing. I went into this expecting it to be one of the better cartoons that I look at in this series, but I didn't think that it would end up being the best cartoon I've looked at so far. I actually don't really hate it all that much. It's like borderline guilty pleasure. That's genuinely how I feel about it. Kind of crazy how in the previous episode we looked at the worst cartoon I've seen, and then this is the best cartoon I've seen in literally the next episode. It's really insane. So there you have it. The Dan Schneider cartoons reviewed just like that. Oh yeah, speaking of which, it's worth noting as well that there were 2 episodes made of the Lil Sam and Cat show that like reference Henry Danger in it, or like they briefly feature Henry Danger in it. And unfortunately, one of the episodes is currently lost, while the other episode has been found and archived. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. So there is technically a crossover between these 2. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna end the video now. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.